My father married the granddaughter of the great Pat Collins, and that's where you get the association of Collins and Harris in the scenario, because we're still a family operated firm from the same dynasty, as it were. I'm now 79. Next April I will be 80. I've been coming here since I was 8. At 8 years of age, between boarding school and the fun fair business, my father's wedding present was a wall of death. The wall of death was manufactured, built at Burton-on-Trent at a firm called Orton and Spooners, who made all our rides at that time. So you can see there's a close association in distance. Probably people from Ashby worked in the factory that made the rides. And as a result of that, there were 6 1932 Indian Scouts motorbikes given to my father when he married his granddaughter, and to my Uncle Eddie, who married the other granddaughter. So 2 wall of deaths, 12 motorbikes, 1932. I still have my dad's motorbike. The wall of death has gone and been sold, but to this day it's still operating, and it used to operate in Book Street, where the Walser operates now in front of the church. So it goes back many years. Over the course of time, my father got associated with the business, and ultimately I took it over from my cousin Patrick, and have been for an awful long time now, 30, 40 years now I think. We've been actually operating it with my family, my dear wife and my 3 sons, who really do most of the work now, and I point my finger and sit back and try and take it a bit easy, but it's not always possible. So my intention is to follow my father and never retire. Because my father, some 20 years ago now, died on the Thursday following the statutes in the back, what is the Zouch, it was, I don't know what it is now, it changes hands every year, but he had his caravan in there and he died there. My youngest son Michael, 40 years ago now, was born while I was here in Ashby. So there's a long family relationship, not only with me and my family, but with all the stall holders. Because if you look at the history of the Statutes Fair, you can go back through the generations when you'll find that most of them, 90%, will be the same family that were here, not 800 years ago, but from the period when the fairs took over from the market and hiring of staff. It was all these statutes and mops and hops were designed for getting staff to work on the farms or in certain industries. So I've been here a long time, and whilst we're here, it just isn't a fair arriving, setting up, taking its ill-gotten gains and going away and forgetting it. Ashby's unique. We're here 5 days, which is an awful long time to be filling up the street and causing chaos. But there's a mood and the feeling afoot in Ashby of a community spirit if only the rest of the world had it. Sometimes it gets a bit eroded when new people come in, but they get persuaded that this is something they should treasure, and they do. And some 40 years ago, I had a ride in Brook Street, where the old people's homes are now. That was a council yard. And I was broke down. And 2 burly guys came up and tapped me on the shoulder. I thought, well, I'm just going to get arrested for something, God knows what. Can we have a word? I said, no, bugger off. I said, I'm broke down. Come back tomorrow. So they went. I thought, the police will be back tomorrow with all the blue lights going. They came back. And they were from the Lions Club. And all they really wanted was, could we possibly have a stall? I said, of course. Oh, that's okay, we'll put it there. Woolworths as it was now, not Costa. It was Woolworths. I said, you can put it up there. What will the rent be? Oh, I don't want any rent. I said, there's an electric plug in that. And they went, oh, no. I said, we're not finished. come back. There's a price to pay. And they went a bit white and said, well, what is the price? I said, I want you to search out kids in care, that's inverted commas, handicapped, underprivileged, and poor families, those that can't afford or can't get to a fair at the normal times when everything's going a bit fast. It's not special, it's just to give them a chance to enjoy what everybody else enjoys, but a bit slower. Okay, that's a deal. And we had 30 kids first time we did it. I think we peaked before health and safety became the ruling thumb. 3,000 kids one year. And we had the schools helping, and the pubs, even pubs came out with lemonade, the shops paid for the candy floss and balloons, and 40 years later we're still doing it. And for that I was very privileged. They made me an honorary member of the Lions Club. So that's still going on. But if you add on the community spirit that's generated in this town whilst we're here, I haven't got that anywhere else in the 30 odd fairs I do a year that I compare and say, this is as good as Ashby. This is as good as it gets. It goes back a long time. So it's not something I've generated, it's something I've inherited. So it's a great privilege to be involved in this town, because during that period of the statutes, we feel very comfortable. And in my business, it's not necessarily all the time that you feel comfortable. You can be stigmatized by people's ignorance of the business, who are involved in the business. Are they travellers? Are they gypsies? Are they itinerants? Well, the answer to all those questions is yes, we are travellers. I used to be very proud to say I'm a travelling showman. I've had to drop that now because it's attached to, unfortunately, the bad image of the traveller. Who I know quite a few travellers. I know quite a few Romany gypsies, and they're honestly the salt of the earth. It's the bad ones that make it, spoil it for all the good ones. And we, as law-abiding citizens, resent the fact that we've got to pay our taxes and comply with the law, and they seem to get away with it. It'll get resolved one day, I hope. But no, I and my family, indigenous English stock, do it a bit balmy. Well, very, very balmy actually, because anybody with any brains, having been to a public school and done all this, will come back and find something permanent. They wouldn't stick their house on wheels with a wheel on each corner and tow that round the country. They wouldn't put their business on wheels and tow that round the country. They'd have an amusement park or something permanent. But this is what we've always done. And Pat Collins was an innovator. The bioscope, which is the cinema, started on the fairground. Electric light was first seen in Walsall on the fairground. The bingo on the fairground. Amusement arcades on the hot dog started on the fairground. And if you look at the ride simulator, the carousel, the gallopers, was a way that the ordinary folk, the poor people, could dress up for 1 or 2 days a year in all their finery and get on a horse for 1 penny and enjoy what the landed gentry did every week with all their crinolines on. So it was effectively, when you look at it, one of the first ride simulators that was ever devised. And we have one. We used to have one many years ago, decades ago, the old man, but the last, 5, 6 years, my youngest son had a saucer one and we bought one, which was here for the first time last year, 1881 that was built. And we've been putting gold leaf on it ever since, 18 karat gold. And that is, we're very proud of that piece of kit. It's unique, it really is. And that lends to the balance. Some people thought, well, we missed the old cakewalk. Well, there's only so much space. And you've got to create sometimes space, and you have to let something go by the board. And the carousel came in. I mean, carousel is an Americanism. As far as we're concerned in this comment, it's the galloper, and that's how it should be known. But when you say that, so what's that? What's that? Never seen it before. So the first steam engine came into Ashby. First electric light came into Ashby. Purpose of Pat Collins Fair. I mean, we've been established since 1875. I obviously haven't been here that long. I feel like it some days, but not this particular day. So we've been coming a long time. And it's a business that is that traditional, it's handed down. Its continuity depends on passing it on to another member of the family. My 3 sons will inherit it. I will never retire like my father until I go. While I have the pen and the checkbook, I'm still the boss. And until I give that up, then I will cease to be the boss. And it goes from me to my dear wife. She will take it over and she will be there. And then it goes to the children. And they're men now, one's 50, one's 40. You know, they're grown up and they're looking at, as we speak, we're going into another carnival, charter fair, as we speak now, in Shifnal in Shropshire, which takes place on Friday and Saturday and Monday. That's quite long. And that's another traditional one. And for example, the highways wanted to do away with Shifnal Carnival because it was in the street. It's a bit like this in the street. This predates the Highways Act. And by virtue of that, if I want to come here for the charter, working with the council, there's nothing the Highways, Her Majesty's Minister of Transport can do to stop me. I can, by courtesy, apply for the closure, but I don't pay anything. I say it's without prejudice, just to let you know. And we have done that now at Shifnal for the last 10 years, after they tried to say, this is stupid in the street. It might be stupid to you, but it wasn't stupid to King John when he granted the charter. They said, what right have you got to be here? Well, I want to have a chat with King John. Because to do away with the charter, you need to call the Privy Council, have the Queen there, got to issue an order, and that has to be ratified by Parliament. Now, that's never happened in the history of our business, which is represented by the Showman's Guild, which I was president for a few years, and all that sort of stuff before I got into local politics. Local politics is about, like any politics in any business, it's no difference. I meet fascinating people. They look at me and say, he's a councillor and he's a fairground man, and they can't sort of get that together. How does that fit? Well, Pat Collins' great-grandfather was a councillor, an alderman, a JP, mayor, and the Member of Parliament for Walsall. In his days, he died when he was 83, so he didn't do too bad. He gave away over £1 million in his day to local. That's why I'm so proud of the handicap and the Kids in Care event that we have. And that went to local charities before we had the National Health Service. He'd have a recital with his organs, these beautiful gaviolis that were purchased from France and the Low Countries, and he'd have a recital at church service. This year, I've been asked, can we resurrect the church service on the Dodgems? Of course, absolutely, from the church in Brook Street. So we'll be fetching that back. When you look at the evolution of the equipment that we have now, IT, high-tech, computer-driven, and yet one of my most popular lorries was built in 1881 and still goes round in the same power, the same structure, the same gold leaf as we put on. And my son, who I'm very grateful of, has picked up the genes of the art skill that I inherited, have renovated this. We've been 5 years at it, we've just about finished now. And it'll be like the Fourth Bridge. As soon as we're finished, we'll have to start the other end, because it's never ending. And it's fascinating. And when you see kids here that can't normally get out, I find it fascinating. I can put a kid that's in a wheelchair, that's totally unable physically to stand up or do anything, into a Dodgem car. It's absolutely fascinating. And that child will be able to drive that Dodgem car better than what I would call a truly 100% able-bodied person. It's fascinating. And we watch them, and honestly it fetches tears to your eyes. First time I did it, 30 odd kids, I was around the back crying all night, thinking of the emotion it created. It was fascinating. And in fact, this year, for the first time ever, that's the first time I ever did it, I was here at last year's statutes, and we were talking about the gallopers and how do you do this and how to do that. I said, would you like to come to our yard and see what we do in the winter? Because I don't sit in Las Vegas or Monte Carlo spending my ill-gotten gains. There's a lot of work has to go on with testing and all the stuff now that are necessary to ensure that rides get their certificate annually. And I thought, well, Carlo, that'd be nice, interesting. So, well, on the day, 5 cars arrived, 4 or 5 in each. I thought, crikey, what do we do now? I'm not a lecturer. What do we do with all this lot? They were supposed to be there for, well, let's say, an hour. 2.5 hours later, they're still there. And we showed them how we did the artwork. We showed them parts of ride being tested. We showed them our engineering shop, our manufacturing side of the business as well. And Joe, 30 people went away amazed. And I do, between all this, I ski. I've skied for 40 years. I still ski. And as the wife said, there's always a balmy one in every family, and I'm it. I ski in tails and the bowler hat. And I promote cancer research. Show my coat, I've got, the cancer logos on it. And I ski the mountain in France. I've done it now for the last 10 years, I must say. And everybody knows me now, there he is. And surprisingly, they laugh with me, they don't laugh at me. And people come and want to give me money. I said, no, I'm making you aware. When you go home, give to the good causes. Wall of Death. I've restored my father's bike, 1932. People say to me, how much is it worth? Nothing. Don't talk ridiculous, it's worth a fortune. So it's worth nothing. Why is that? Because it's not for sale. I said, my father had it, I've got it, my youngest son will have it, and his son will have it. So it's not got a value in money, but it's got a value in family history and heritage and where it came from, this beautiful Indian Scout bike. I still have my father's camel, 1939, just before the war. That's all been restored. I've still got that. I've still got my baby motorbike that my father bought me just after the war finished, that was designed for the parachute regiment. He gave £30 for it in the sales. And that little corgi bike, called the Papoose, it was made by the Indian Car and Bike Company. And that's the one I rode when I was 8. When I came back from school, my father always bought Savile Row joppers and handmade shoe boots, and all his shirts were handmade. And likewise I had handmade joppers, handmade boots, and I was the first act in the show. And in those days, my father, before my time, because it was pre-war, because I was born in 1940, he had a lion called Rita, and that lion, we still have the car with a sidecar on it, where the lions sat while my father took it round the Wall of Death. Obviously nowadays, even I would say, that's not on. Times have changed. And we had that lion right up to the war. And sadly, during the war, the zoos wouldn't take her because they had the same problem with meat and bombing and getting out. And father was having trouble getting the horse meat to feed her. And he was a registered lion tamer, my father, with a Smith & Wesson revolver up until he was 74, when he surrendered it. He said, I don't need it anymore, I've got nobody to shoot. Then he surrendered his Smith & Wesson revolver, which was the real McCoy. It wasn't a toy. And from then, during the war, the vet said, I'll come and put her down in the lion's house. He said, no. I've had that since a cub. I'll do it myself. He said it was the most horrible day in his life, having to put that lion down because simply couldn't guarantee a security or the meat. So we have some funny things go on in our business, and as I say, the family of Collins, they went on into amusement parks, they went into cinemas, they went into dance halls. Because my father was married in St Chad's Church in Birmingham, and the reception was in one of the dance halls. And on the sideline, my father and Pat Collins' granddaughter were world champion ballroom dancers, because they used to give exhibitions in the ballrooms, but also the rides built by Alton and Spooner, just up the road here in Burton, would have a platform on the front. And to make it, when it was really truly showmanship, to attract people to the ride, the organ would play waltz music, and my father and Margaret would dance on the front, top hat and tails, all the gear, come dancing on the front. And all these fascinating things. Steam engines, we had 28 at one time, which were sold for scrap. If you wanted to buy one today, you'd be searching high and low to get one for just under £1 million. And we scrapped them. So sometimes you should keep things and not get rid of it. Has anything learned? Don't get rid of everything this generation. Skip a generation and its value shot up. And that's why I keep these old vehicles, because they're the only, I've got a Foden, an ERF and a Scamel. They're the last of the British manufactured lorries that you never see again. But Ashby, 800 years, it's a hell of a time. And it's significant that Ashby and its council and whoever's in charge of whatever have sustained this piece of history. And I just enjoy it. My family do. And while I've got breath, I'll keep going. I could sit here and talk for hours about, what's it like being in a public school and then coming home to a fairground when your father said to him, look, if you get top of the class, you can come home or you can go on into the services. I thought, well, it's like, say, Disneyland or factory. So I thought, I'm going to have Disneyland.